Dear student, in this video we study the part of Hardy-Weinberg law. This Hardy-Weinberg law is included in the topic 3.2 quantitative inheritance, and in that the second point is a present, which is a population genetics. In that we have to study this Hardy-Weinberg law, which is belongs to paper number 9, genetics and plant breeding. Dear students, in our question, the question is arises what is mean by population genetics, and then we will turning towards the Hardy-Weinberg law. All of you know that when we consider the term ecosystem, it consists of many species, and species is a group of living organism which consists of comprising of similar individual, and these individuals having capacity are capable of exchanging genes through interbreeding. The individuals of a same species of a particular region is termed as a population. Therefore, definition is in this manner: a group of individuals of a particular species occupying a definite space in which the individuals interact, interbreed, as well as in them exchange of genetic material is takes place. That group of individual is termed as a ecosystem. What is mean by population ecosystem or population genetics? Definition of these population genetics is in this manner: it is a study of distribution and changes of allele frequency and interaction of allele in a population. A population is prone to the four main evolutionary forces. Which are these four from? In that, first is nothing but a natural selection. Second is termed as a genetic drift. Third one is a mutation, and fourth is a gene flow. It is also termed as a migration. Study of population genetics is essential for understanding the species adaptation as well as evolution which is that takes place in that species. For this a proper study of species adaptation and evolution, we have to study these population genetics. Then question arises, then what is mean by Mendelian genetics or Mendelian population? Mendelian population is a consist of a group of only sexually interbreeding organisms. Those organisms in which sexual reproduction is takes place, these are coming under the Mendelian population, because in that Mendelian population only group of sexually inbreeding organisms is coming. It is also called as genetic population, or it is termed as a random mating population. A community of similar individuals living within a circumscribed area at a given time and capable of interbreeding to produce fertile offsprings. That is termed as a Mendelian population. Means a Mendelian population by definition is defined as a community of a similar individual. Mean in that population only similar individuals these are coming together. These are living within a circumscribed area at a given time, and these are capable of interbreeding, and after them a new fertile offspring these are produced. That population is nothing but a Mendelian population. Mendelian population is characterized by individuals having somewhat similar genetic constitution. Then in that population genetics we have to study the Hardy-Weinberg law. This Hardy-Weinberg law, it is also termed as a Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Means by this law we have to study a theoretic situation in which population is undergoing, and in that population there is no evolutionary changes. This point is important. In that population there is no evolutionary changes, and therefore this Hardy-Weinberg law explain if the evolutionary forces are absent, means in that population there is absence of evolutionary forces, and these evolutionary forces are mutation, selection, genetic drift. These are the forces which is responsible for the evolution, and these evolutionary forces are absent. then this population is so large. It is so large as well as it is indefinitely large. And why this population is large? Because in that population, if any mistake is takes place, then that mistake is becoming a negligible one. In such manner, that population is large. Third point is nothing but it explains its individual have random mating, means in that population the species individuals which is the living, they show the random mating. In them there is no any selection for any specific genotype as well as a parental genotype. The random mating must be takes place in that population, and each parent produce roughly equal number of gametes, means in that population the parental generation which is the present, from that parental generation we have to observe the equal number of gametes, means when we study this Hardy-Weinberg law as well as equilibrium, then that population, in that population genetics, the mutation, selection, genetic drift, these evolutionary forces must be absent. The population is so large that if any changes mistake these are takes place, then that mistake is becoming a negligible one due to that large population. In them the individuals which is living, they show the random mating, there is no any selection for specific genotype, and the parents they produce equal number of gametes. Then the gametes produced by the mating combine at random way and the gene frequency remain constant, means when such a situation is present in that population, then it is definitely found that the genes as well as the allele frequency of that population is remain a constant generation after generation. There is no any change is that takes place on that genetic equilibrium, and the gene in questions is maintained, and there is a variability present in that population. That variability is preserved by that population, but in that case there is a totally absence of evolution. In 1908, the scientist G.H. Hardy, which is from England, and it is basically mathematician, and another scientist W. Weinberg, which is belongs to Germany, and he is a physician. But these are both scientists, they study independently and develop a quantitative theory for defining the genetic structure of that population. And that genetic structure of a population is later on known as a Hardy-Weinberg law. This Hardy-Weinberg law provides a basic algebraic formula for describing the expected frequencies of various genotypes in that population. This Hardy-Weinberg law states that the relative frequencies of genes in a large panmatic population after random mating remain constant from generation to generation if there is absence of evolutionary processes like migration, mutation, selection and genetic drifts. Means in that population, large population, that large population is termed as a panmatic population. In that the individuals which is living, they show the random mating, and when such sexual reproduction is takes place by that random mating, and when we observe the generation after generation which is produced in that species, the new ones which is present in that species, in there the relative frequencies of genes, these are remain constant generation after generation. When there is absence of these forces, they must be absent. These forces may be migration, mutation, selection and genetics drift. The Hardy-Weinberg principle, also known as Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium model, theorem or law, which explains that alleles and genotype frequencies in a population will remain constant from generation to generation in the absence of other evolutionary influences. And therefore, it states that both gene frequency and genotype frequency will remain constant from generation to generation in an infinitely large inbreeding population in which Mating is at random and there is no selection, migration as well as a mutation it is occur. There are certain conditions for this hardy Weinberg population. In that first condition is this, the population must be large. Second condition, mating must be random with no selection for certain genotypes. There must be no immigration or immigration as well as immigrations in migrations. There may be no mutations as well as there may be no institious mating. Means these conditions must be fulfilled by that population. Then when such all conditions these are fulfilled, then this principle predicts that the distribution of genotype frequency will remain constant from one generation to the next generation, and that is not subject to evolutionary forces. That is, the frequency of alleles are always present in equilibrium, and that equation is shown by that scientist in this manner: p square plus 2pq plus q square is equal to 1, where p and q are the two alleles at a particular locus in that population. To understand Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, we first have to understand the basic genetics. Initially, scientists thought that the inheritance of genetic information occurred by a blending mechanism. In this process, offspring generated by the sexual reproduction of two individuals exhibit intermediates of the traits of each parent, just like the mixing of two colors in a single cup. However, this disputed under Darwin's theory of natural selection, which relies on the existence of variable traits that are passed on to offsprings and it making them more likely to survive. In a blending system, this variation would be quickly lost. The blending theory was opposed by the famous pea plant experiments of Gregor Mendel, which show that alternative allele in a locus account for various as well as these are mainly responsible for the variation in inheritance. Each individual has two copies of each gene. All of you know that. For example, in case of a diploid cell, each gamete means gametic cell is nothing but a male gamete, female gamete in the form of a sperm as well as egg. Only one copies of that gene is present. It receives only single set of chromosomes and that is to be passed on to the next generation. The selection of each allele is a random one and so each copy of gene has a 50% chance of being passed on to the next generation. Thus, we accept half of all individual gametes to the contain one allele and the other half of contain other allele. With refer to the combination of two alleles, the offspring receives at a particular locus at their genotype. If there are two alleles in a population at locus C, allele C and allele small c, then we found that the individual could inherit all possible combinations to make their genotype, and that combination must be capital C, small c, or capital C, small c. These are nothing but various type of passing combinations of their genotypes. If an individual has capital CC or small cc, they are referred to as a homozygotes because these are having the similar copies of their allele. But some are not receiving the homozygous condition, but they receiving either heterozygous condition. In them, one is a dominant form allele and another is a recessive form of allele. If the heterozygote capital C is phenotypically identical to one of the homozygotes, the allele found in the heterozygotes is said to be dominant, meaning this is the trait that is, and the allele found in the other homozygote is recessive. That is, the effective of the recessive allele are masked by the effect of a dominant allele. The dominant allele is usually denoted with the copies with capital letters and the recessive alleles with the small letters. There are one example we have to consider, and this example shows us how these relative frequency of gene remain a constant generation after generation by using the formula a plus b bracket square. It indicates that it is always shows unity, that is 1. Means a square plus 2ab plus b square is equal to 1. In this, the frequency of allele C in the population is a P, and the frequency of allele small c in a population is represented by small q. Then the frequency of genotype capital C is equal to into capital Q2 and capital Q2. Means in that allele, the new one produced the progeny, these are getting the half number of chromosomes. And then the frequency of genotype C2 CC is equal to P2, and the frequency of genotype capital C small c is 2PQ, and the frequency of genotype is again a third manner, that is small c, that is nothing but equal to Q square. By using this data, how these alleles these are remain present generation after generation, we will study. But you remember well this equation, P plus Q is equal to always showing unity as well, always it remain constant. And here in this example we have to given the parental generation capital Y small y, their phenotypic expression is not given, but genotype frequency 49 and 42. In them, the number of individual total present is 500 in dominant one and 210 in a recessive one. From them, the gametic cells which is produced, these are 490 plus 210 is equal to 700. It is given to you, or we can easily calculate it by observing this example. Therefore, the F1 hybrid which is produced, these are having the 700 Y divided by 100 BPL, not BPL, 100, the characterize the unit of that is the 490 plus 210 is equal to 700. It is the same in a XY system, while in YY system, while in a small YY system it is nothing but a 0.9. X, these are having such type of a allele number. Then in Y here 490 plus 210 is equal to 700, these are seen. In this second 210 plus 90 is equal to 300, this number of allele as well as genes which is having their peculiarity is seen. Again in them, from the second generation, the hybrid is produced in the formation of 700 Y divided by 1000 Y is equal to 7 is equal to P. Same situation is present here. 300 Y divided by 1000 total is equal to 3. But these are 3 plus 7 is equal to always 10 is equal to 1. In similar fashion, this is 0.7 and 0.3 plus 1 is they show 1.0 is equal to 1. Then question arises, this from this population, when F2 data is produced, then in a checkerboard we are normally found that from here capital P small p capital Q, these are nothing but a P and Q, these are nothing but a factor. Their union is that explicit results into capital Y means 0.7, 0.7, 49. Capital Y, small y means 0.7 and 0.3. Therefore, Satric equis 21. Was capital Y, small y, same situation. And small y means only Q square is equal to 0.9, only 0.9. Situation is present. Such type of allele production is takes place in the next generation. But when we observe that their allelic number is remain constant or not, in this diagrammatic representation, p square plus 2pq plus q square is equal to 1. This equation we know. P square means 7 square, 49.49. PQ means this is a 2PQ, that is a 2PQ 7 plus 3 square means this 3 square is given in this example first. Later on their number is included 49, 42.9 is always leading towards the frequency. These are 49.49, these are predicted frequency of dominant offsprings. 0.42 predicted the frequency of intermediate component, and these are 0.9, these are predicted the frequency of a small y offsprings. But these are always remain constant generation after generation. This is nothing but a plus b bracket square is always 1. Unity, it is a universal equation. Similar fashion, when these two scientists, Hardy and Weinberg, they study the relative frequency of allele, it is remain constant generation after generation. And in them, the condition is the population must be large. There is no evolutionary forces. There is a totally absence of evolutionary forces. Then and then only we can get these relative gene frequency constant. There are certain significance. In that, first significance is gene and genotype frequency of different alleles of a gene in a population remain equilibrium generation after generation. Mating is a completely random phenomenon in a population. Only large population follow Hardy-Weinberg law of equilibrium. Gene frequencies will be unpredictable in small population. All the genotypes in a population reproduce equally successfully one, and a population in Hardy-Weinberg law is shows in this manner, show equilibrium. It does not show any evolutionary. Thank you, student. Thank you very much.